something is changing at Heartland, and Season 20 could be one of the most important chapters the series has ever entered. After years of heartbreak, family changes, unexpected decisions, and emotional goodbyes, the story is moving forward again. But this time, the big question is not simply whether Heartland will return. The real question is, what exactly is Season 20 bringing with it? There are major developments surrounding the new season, and some of them could completely change the future of Amy, the Bartlett-Fleming family, and the ranch itself. The latest news is giving fans plenty to talk about, but there is one detail that makes this upcoming season especially interesting. Because after everything Heartland has already been through, Season 20 may not be about repeating the past. It may be about deciding what comes next. For a series that has been on television for so many years, reaching Season 20 is more than just another renewal. It represents an incredible milestone for Heartland and for the characters who have grown alongside its audience. The ranch has changed, the family has changed, Amy has changed, and the world around Heartland is no longer the same place it was when the story first began. That is exactly why Season 20 has become such a major talking point. The new season is expected to continue the emotional direction established in the recent chapters of the series, while introducing new challenges that could test the family in completely different ways. Instead of simply focusing on one dramatic problem, the story appears ready to explore several connected conflicts involving family, relationships, the future of the ranch, and the difficult choices that come when holding onto the past is no longer enough. And at the center of all of this is Amy. Amy has spent years building a life around Heartland. She has carried on her mother's legacy, developed her extraordinary connection with horses, raised Lindy, and tried to protect the place that means so much to her family. But Season 20 could push her toward a question she cannot avoid forever. Does protecting Heartland mean staying exactly where she is? Or does protecting its legacy sometimes mean accepting change? That question could become one of the emotional foundations of the new season. The recent storylines have already placed Amy in situations where her personal future and her responsibilities at the ranch do not always point in the same direction. Her relationship with Nathan has also added another layer to that conflict. Nathan represents a possible future outside the familiar routine of Heartland, while the ranch represents everything Amy has inherited, everything she has built, and everything she has fought to preserve. That creates a powerful emotional dilemma. For Amy, leaving would never be as simple as packing a bag and starting somewhere else. Heartland is not just a property, it is a part of her identity. It carries memories of her mother, her grandfather, Ty, and every major chapter of her life. So if Season 20 forces Amy to seriously consider a different future, the emotional consequences could be enormous. And that is where the new season becomes particularly interesting. Because Heartland has always understood that the biggest conflicts are not necessarily created by villains. Sometimes the hardest battles come from choices between two things you love: family or freedom, the past or the future, staying or moving forward. Season 20 has the opportunity to explore all of those questions at once. But Amy is not the only character facing change. The entire Heartland family has reached a point where the younger generation is beginning to define its own future. Lindy is growing up, and her relationship with Amy is becoming increasingly important to the story. For years, viewers have watched Amy learn how to become a mother while carrying the emotional weight of her own past. Now, Lindy's growth could force Amy to think differently about the kind of life she wants to build for her daughter. At the same time, Jack remains the emotional foundation of the family. His experience and wisdom have always helped keep Heartland together, but even Jack cannot stop time. The older generation is gradually stepping back, while the younger generation takes on more responsibility. That transition could become one of the defining themes of Season 20. And then there is Tim. Tim has never been the easiest character to predict. His decisions can be impulsive, emotional, and sometimes frustrating, but his connection to his family has always been strong. As the future of Heartland becomes more uncertain, Tim could once again find himself caught between what he believes the family should do and what the next generation actually wants. Lou, meanwhile, continues to have her own responsibilities and ambitions. Her life has always existed between the family and the outside world, and another major shift at Heartland could bring her back into the center of the family's biggest decisions. Then there is the ranch itself. This may be where Season 20 becomes more serious than fans expect. Heartland has survived storms, fires, financial problems, personal tragedies, relationship breakdowns, and countless other challenges. But the future of a family ranch in the modern world is never guaranteed. Competition is increasing, costs are rising, and traditional ranching faces pressure from larger commercial operations. That means the danger facing Heartland does not necessarily have to come from one person. It can come from the changing world. And if Season 20 explores financial pressure on the ranch, the stakes could become much higher than simply losing money. The family could be forced to decide how much they are willing to sacrifice to keep Heartland alive. Would they sell part of the property? Would they accept outside investment? Would they change the way the ranch operates? Or would they risk everything to protect the Heartland they know? These questions create a much larger conflict because every possible answer comes with a price. And there is another important reason fans are watching Season 20 so closely. The series has reached a point where its characters are no longer simply trying to survive the next crisis. They are starting to think about legacy. What will Heartland look like years from now? Who will carry it forward? And what happens when the people who built that legacy finally realize they cannot control what comes next? Those questions could give Season 20 a very different emotional tone. It could still have the horses, the family moments, the romance, and the emotional storytelling that fans expect. But underneath all of that could be a much bigger story about change. And perhaps that is the biggest news of all. Season 20 does not have to destroy what Heartland has always been in order to make the story feel new. It can take everything the audience already loves and place those familiar characters in situations where their old solutions no longer work. That is where real suspense begins. Because if Amy is forced to choose between the life she has always known and the future she may actually want, there may be no perfect answer. And whatever decision she makes could affect the entire Heartland family. But this is only the beginning. Because beyond Amy's personal future, there are bigger developments waiting for the ranch. Developments that could put the family's finances, relationships, and long-term plans under serious pressure. And once those problems begin to collide, Heartland may face one of its most difficult transitions yet. The biggest mystery surrounding Season 20 may not be about what happens to one character. It may be about what happens to Heartland itself. For generations, the ranch has been more than a business. It has been a home, a place of healing, and a symbol of everything the Bartlett Fleming family has survived. But symbols do not pay bills, and traditions do not automatically protect a family from a changing economy. That reality could become increasingly important in Season 20. The ranch is facing the kind of pressure that cannot simply be solved by working harder. Commercial competition is becoming stronger. The cost of running a ranch continues to rise, and the family has to think carefully about how Heartland can remain financially stable without losing the identity that makes it special. That creates a dangerous situation. Because what happens when the only way to save Heartland is to change Heartland? This could be one of the central conflicts of the new season. The family may be forced to consider choices they never imagined making. They could look at new business opportunities, different ways of managing the property, or decisions that would once have seemed completely against the Heartland philosophy. And every option could create another problem. If they modernize the ranch too much, do they risk losing what makes it unique? If they refuse to change, could they eventually lose the ranch altogether? There may be no easy answer. For Amy, this pressure would be especially personal. She has always believed that Heartland's greatest strength comes from its connection with people and horses. Her work is not simply about training an animal and sending it away. It is about understanding what is underneath the problem. But what happens when the problem is not a horse? What happens when the problem is the future of the entire ranch? Amy may discover that emotional intelligence alone cannot solve every problem. Sometimes a difficult decision requires accepting that something must change. And this could create tension between different members of the family. Jack may want to protect the land and the traditions that have kept Heartland alive for so long. Tim could have his own ideas about how the family should respond. Lou may look at the situation from a more practical business perspective. Amy could find herself somewhere in the middle, trying to protect the heart of the ranch while also understanding that the future cannot simply copy the past. That disagreement could become one of the most interesting family conflicts in season 20. Not because anyone is necessarily wrong, but because everyone may be right in a different way. And while the family is dealing with the ranch, Amy's personal life could become even more complicated. Her relationship with Nathan has already created a major emotional question. Nathan's future does not necessarily have to look like Amy's past, and that difference could become impossible to ignore. A relationship can survive many things, but can it survive two people wanting completely different lives? That question could become very important. Nathan may represent stability, love, and a new beginning for Amy, but accepting that future could mean making difficult decisions about where she lives, what she prioritizes, and how much of her life remains tied to Heartland. For Amy, that would be an enormous decision, because choosing Nathan would not mean simply choosing a person. It could mean choosing a new direction, and that is exactly why the relationship has the potential to become one of the most emotional storylines in season 20. Amy has spent so much of her life looking backward. She has carried memories of Ty, the loss of her mother, and the responsibilities that came with becoming the person everyone depended on. Now, she may finally have the chance to look forward, but looking forward can be frightening when the past still feels like home. This is where Lindy becomes even more important. Amy's decisions no longer affect only herself. Every major choice she makes can shape Lindy's future as well. Lindy is growing up in a family filled with strong personalities and deep traditions, and she will eventually have to decide what kind of connection she wants with Heartland. Could she become part of the next generation to carry the ranch forward, or could she grow up and choose an entirely different life? Season 20 may begin planting the seeds for those questions, and that would give the season a deeper emotional meaning. Heartland has always been about generations. The older characters teach the younger ones, and eventually, the younger generation has to decide what lessons they want to keep. That cycle may now be entering a new stage. Jack has spent decades carrying the family legacy. Amy inherited much of that responsibility. Now the question becomes whether Amy can eventually pass something meaningful to Lindy without forcing her daughter to live the same life. That distinction matters, because legacy should not mean repeating someone's life. It should mean having the freedom to build something from what they left behind. And that idea could become incredibly important as the family faces financial and emotional pressure. But there may be another threat waiting. Cattle rustling and problems involving the ranch's livestock could create a very different kind of danger. When valuable animals disappear, the consequences are not only financial. It can create fear, suspicion, and tension within an entire community. And if the people responsible are connected to a larger operation, the family could find itself dealing with a problem much bigger than expected. That could bring Tim and Jack into a protective role once again, while forcing the younger members of the family to face the reality that Heartland is not completely safe from the outside world. The suspense could build slowly. At first, it might look like an isolated problem, then another incident could happen. And suddenly, the family may realize that someone is testing them. That would change the atmosphere around the ranch. Because when a family has spent generations protecting one place, the idea of someone trying to take advantage of that place becomes deeply personal. And this is where season 20 could combine its emotional story with a stronger dramatic storyline. The ranch is under pressure from the modern economy. The family is facing difficult personal decisions. Amy is questioning what she wants from the future, and outside threats could make every decision even more urgent. But perhaps the most emotional part of all is what this means for Jack. For so long, Jack has been the person everyone could depend on. When things went wrong, he was there. When the family needed advice, he had an answer. When the ranch was in danger, he stepped forward. But eventually, even the strongest person has to accept that the next generation must take control. That does not mean Jack stops being important. It means his role changes. And that could lead to some deeply emotional moments in season 20. The question is whether Jack can truly let go. And more importantly, whether the rest of the family is ready to take the reins. Because Heartland cannot remain frozen in time. The land may stay, the house may stay, the horses may come and go, but the people will continue to change. And that may be the real story season 20 is preparing to tell. Not simply how the family saves the ranch, but how the family learns to move forward without losing the history that brought them there. And just when it seems like Amy may finally understand what she wants, another decision could force her to question everything again. Because the future of Heartland may depend on a choice that nobody in the family is completely prepared to make. So, the big question now is not whether Heartland can survive another challenge. It is whether the family is ready for the changes that are coming with it. Season 20 could bring major decisions for Amy, unexpected pressure on the ranch, and emotional moments that force the entire family to look at their future differently. And if the latest developments are any indication, this season may be about much more than simply continuing the story. It could be about deciding what Heartland will become next. Will Amy choose the future she has been building, or will her connection to Heartland pull her back once again? Can the family protect the ranch without losing what makes it special? And when everything finally reaches a breaking point, who will make the decision that changes Heartland forever? One thing is certain. Season 20 has the potential to open a completely new chapter. And the biggest surprises may still be ahead. If you're excited for Heartland Season 20, make sure you stay tuned for the latest updates, because as more official information comes out, we could finally discover where Amy, the family, and the ranch are heading next. But perhaps the most important thing to remember is that Heartland has never been a story where everything stays the same. The ranch changes, the family grows, people leave, people return, and sometimes the hardest part is accepting that yesterday cannot be brought back. That could be exactly what makes Season 20 so emotional. Amy may have to make choices that affect not only her own future, but the future of everyone around her. Jack may have to trust the next generation more than ever. And the ranch itself could face challenges that force the family to decide what they are truly willing to fight for. There could also be surprises that fans are not expecting. New relationships could develop, old memories could return, and decisions made early in the season could have consequences much later. And that is why every new update matters. Because one small detail about Season 20 could completely change how we understand the story that is coming. Will Heartland remain the same place fans have loved for years? Or are we about to see the beginning of its biggest transformation yet? Whatever happens, Season 20 is shaping up to be a chapter about family, love, sacrifice, and the courage to move forward. So stay connected for more Heartland updates, because the closer we get to the new season, the more pieces of the puzzle are going to fall into place. And when that first major surprise finally arrives, the question may no longer be, what is happening to Heartland? It may be, what will Heartland become next?